once I went into that club, it was hard to adjust to any other club or go to any other place because it was like, it was magical.
Today is Monday, March 10th, 2025. Who are we speaking with?
Jonny De La Rivera.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, never thought about that, but just for people remembering me in a good light, and also just appreciating what I do for the house community with providing events for them to go to and dance and have fun and gather. And so real simple, nothing major.
Tell us the history and origin of the BE party you throw in Brooklyn every summer.
How long?
Yeah, tell us the origin story. Like, how'd you come up with the idea? How long have you been doing
Oh, yeah,
it?
yeah, yeah,
How do
yeah.
you find the DJs? Like, what inspired you to do it? Tell us the
Mhm.
name of the party. Give us the whole thing.
Okay. It all started when I went to a Soul Summit event because I live actually across the street from the park. And I went to one of their events and, fell in love right away. And so I was like, wow, I would love to do this for my parties. And so they actually are the ones that inspired me. And so I came up with Brooklyn Elements. And that started Brooklyn Elements. I've been doing, the brand has been since 2008, but the Fort Greene events, the B Music Fest, those parties, we're on our 13th year now. So this summer will be 13 years we've been doing it.
And tell us about you often have guest DJs. Who are some of the people that have played there, and then how do you find people to play at your event? How do you curate that?
Yeah, the curating is pretty easy because a lot of people reach out to me wanting to play, because it is a fun event. And I started, it was me and Lou Gorbea. Uh, he joined in with starting playing with me from the very beginning. So Lou was very cool and open about it. And then as the party progressed and got a little bigger and bigger and bigger, we started adding, a third DJ, and Jihad Muhammad played with us for the last 5 years. Uh, actually, no, actually, not the last five, but he played with us for about 5 events, and then he started his own events, and so then we now the last 2 years we've added, we have Victor Rosado play with us, and Benny Soto, Mike Nervous, veteran cats, and it's easy to get people to play for the event. So, and most of the DJs I do invite, I know personally, so it's pretty easy for me to get them to play. Not too much convincing needed.
So the BE festival has been so successful that it's been copied. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I mean, I'm sometimes speechless when it comes to those things because it just, it makes no sense to me. I mean, I would never, engage in that kind of behavior. And yeah, it's been used several times, and I try to be amicable about it and reach out to them and just say, listen, this is really trademark infringement, and if there's something different, you can change it, come up with something a little different so it's not so I mean, blatantly, copyright infringement. And then a couple of people have responded with being very understanding, and but then there was a couple that just didn't budge and thought that they had every right to use B Music Fest. And it makes no sense to me. There's a million things you can name your event. I mean, why that? So
Paint the picture of the New York scene today. Say my buddy Kai is coming from Munich and he's going to be here for 8 days. Where should he go? What should he see? What should he do for our sound?
well, it all depends on like what scene they're into. I mean, if they're really into the whole like Brooklyn elements sound and underground sound, there's not many clubs that are really out there that play the music that I love. 718 is probably the one of the best parties, but that's monthly. 718 session, Danny Crivet. And then, Body and Soul, as you know, is like, I think only twice a year now. So if they can time it to go to those events, they would love it. There's Danny Tenegula has monthly parties, so I would recommend a Danny Tenegula party. It's a little more up tempo, but and let's see, what was the other? Oh yeah, and Oscar G. His parties are very nice, and he plays both. He gets into classics and he plays the new stuff, so he's a really nice balance. Yep. So those are the ones I recommend.
So let's go back to the beginning. Where were you born and where'd you grow up?
I was born in Spanish Harlem, and I was there for probably about 12 years. And then my family moved to Brooklyn. And then I was basically raised there in Borum Hill section.
And what kind of music did you hear around the house growing up?
A lot of, well, my mom would always play Spanish music, salsa, you know, and my dad was very versatile. He loved all music. So he introduced me to rock music, and this is a man that was born and raised in Puerto Rico, but, he had an amazing passion for music, and he really enjoyed every genre. So my dad introduced me to multiple genres like rock, jazz, Latin jazz, of course, Spanish music was, part of my childhood. And he really loved Latin jazz. So, I got a good history of music growing up as a child.
Tell us about the first club you went to as a teenager.
The first one I went to was Ones, and that was at 111 Hudson Street.
What kind of music was they playing? What was the vibe like?
Yeah, it was definitely like it wasn't really called house music then, but we called it club music and disco. And actually, Danny Crivet was playing there. And then, if I remember correctly, his dad owned the bar in the club. So, and that was one of my favorite places, and it was really small, but Danny was always playing the good music, so I loved it. And then from there is when I first went to the Paradise Garage, I was 17 years old. And the only reason why I got in is because one of my friends knew the owner, uh, Brody, Michael Brody. And so I was able to get in because I was obviously underage, but they turned a blind eye and let me in for the night. And once I went into that club, it was hard to adjust to any other club or go to any other place because it was like, it was magical.
Tell us about the first time you went there. What did you see? What did you smell? What did you experience?
Oh, well, when I first, the ramp, it felt like I was heading into an airport. There was this huge ramp that led up to the booth where you would pay to get in. And they had these, it looked like airport lights where the lights would just stream across. And then you can just, first of all, you can hear the sound system a few blocks away. So you always heard the bass. And as you get closer and closer, you felt it even more and more and more. And then once you walked on that ramp, you can almost feel the bass going through your heart. And you wasn't even in the space yet. So, but yeah, then once I walked in to the dance floor, it was pretty amazing because the lighting alone was way ahead of its time. It was like a 3-ring circus in the ceiling. It had these rings, and Larry had lights in every part of that ring, and it was just, I mean, the giant disco balls and the fog machine and the incredible sound that came out of that place was just, still, there's nothing like it to this day. There was one club that got really, really close to it, and that was in London, the Ministry of Sound. But yeah, and once I stepped into that and listened to the music and the way Larry was playing stuff, it was just, that was it. That was my home for almost 8 years.
Do you remember what year it was the first time you went there?
Yeah, it was 1983.
What's the one lesson you've learned from the garage that you take away to today?
Don't be afraid to play anything. And that was the thing with Larry. There was nothing he was not afraid to play. I mean, he played rock music, played Marian Faithfull. He played Miss You, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin. He was really, he was magical. And he knew his sound system. He knew how much to push and when to, yeah, he was just devoted and very creative and talented. And sound is so important. And that's what I also got from that club, is sound is really important. And that's why we put, with the B Music Fest, the sound system is based on the design by Richard Long and Gary Stewart. We have basically the same sound system, but we only have 4 stacks. Garage had, I think, 8. And, yeah, it was pretty amazing. I wish I can go back to those days.
Tell us a story about the first time going to the Loft. Who brought you there? What did you see? What did you experience?
Yeah, I went with, actually, the first time I went there was with Archie Burnett and my friend Steven Enrique. And what I liked about the Loft was the music that David would play. It wasn't your typical disco club sound. I mean, he played City Country City, songs that I never imagined hearing anywhere else and never heard anywhere else. And that's what I really loved about Mancuso, was his selection was just pretty amazing. And I remember listening to a set, and we're trying to write down songs and wait, what is that? What is that? always trying to figure out what song he was playing, which was difficult at the time because there was no Shazamming and then the songs he was playing was never aired in the radio. So it was always a challenge trying to find out what he was playing. And luckily I knew the right people and I would always get the titles, but very tricky. And that's what I loved about David. And the sound was pretty amazing, but it was a different level of sound. It was more, uh, hi-fi and more, it was more, the volume was a little lower. There wasn't as much bass. The Paradise Garage was, the sound, it would make your heart race. It was just, the sound waves would go through you at times. It was pretty amazing. But, that's what I love. The selection that David played was amazing. I preferred the Garage only because of the sound and the lighting. The Loft was very dark and, and more reserved, so to speak.
Uh, there are different lofts. Were you 99 Prince? Were you Mercer? Were you Avenue C? Which loft did you go to?
99 Prince, 3rd Street, and Mercer I did not go to. It was 99 Prince and then 3rd Street.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Tell us a story about the first time you went to the World, and tell people what the World was.
Yeah, well, the Garage had closed by then, and I only knew of the World because of Larry. Actually, he was playing there, and then I also knew Michael Alec and James St. James. These guys were party promoters, and so the World was kind of like the next thing to the Garage, like the place to go because of the space was really nice. And they did have a decent sound system. Larry was playing there for a while. But then I got lucky and played at the lower level, through Michael Alec, who, he had issues towards the end of his career, but yeah. And to say it mildly, I should say. Yeah. But yeah, no, the World was a very nice place, but it wasn't around for long.
Tell us a story about Crisco Disco.
I only went there twice, and the first time I went, it was pretty light. It wasn't a big crowd, but I just remember this DJ booth looking like the Crisco can, and the music selection was nice. I don't remember who was the DJ there at the time, but it was a nice space. Oh, and also the Inferno was another club that I went to a few times, and that was fun. Kenny Carpenter was playing there. Yeah. So, but Cisco Disco was, only I only experienced it twice, and it was pretty calm crowd, nothing too crazy.
What's the most shocking thing you've seen in a nightclub?
I don't know. Is this censored or what?
You can say whatever you want.
It's crazy. Oh my God. It was at the Garage, of course. And, the Garage had a movie theater. And let's just say a couple of guys going crazy on each other, Yeah. But, it was part of the times back then.
Tell us a story about the Limelight.
Yeah, the Limelight. Also, that was a smaller room I played in. It was for Michael Alec. And you know, that was more, it was definitely a different vibe. It was nothing like Paradise Garage or the Loft. It was more, this was more of the new, like trendy crowd going, you know, obviously, you know, Michael was doing all these parties where everyone would dress up almost, it was almost like a Halloween party every night over there, you know? And the energy was great. Everyone was always having a fun time, and you know, it was a great experience. You know, I love their camaraderie over there as well, because you know, they weren't very picky about what they were listening to. Just as long as there was something playing, they were going to dance to it, you know, regardless if they liked the song or not. So it was always jumping, you know, which is nice. When
Talk
you have a crowd, when you have a crowd like that where you can just play anything and they just appreciate it, that's fun.
talk to us about the transition of going from a music fan going to the nightclubs to becoming a DJ. How did that happen? Where did that happen? Why did that?
Well, I started very young as a DJ. I was actually DJing before I went to clubs. Yeah, yeah. And that all transpired because I was around 15 years old, and in my neighborhood they used to have these block parties. And you know, one time it was DJ setting up some equipment and they were playing some music, and you know, the crowd was really loving it. And I was really impressed by how this DJ set something up and was playing music and really had a huge crowd just kind of dancing in sync with each other and loving it. And the energy was what I was drawn to, because it really made people happy, you know, despite the neighborhood we were growing up in, which was very, you know, poor. You know, the music really brought joy to everyone. And um, so I was gravitated to that, and I was like, wow, you know, I would love to do that, be able to play music and have everyone just forget about their worries and their troubles and dance all night. And so, you know, little by little, I bought, you know, two turntables. And then my first gig was a Sweet 16 party when I was 15. Yeah. And then from there, you know, I just slowly progressed with my vinyl collection and meeting other DJs. And, you know, then once I went to the garage, that was it. I knew that was going to be my passion for the rest of my life.
Tell us a story about DJing at Area, but first tell people what Area was.
Yeah, Area was a really big club, and actually, I think it was also in the same space that it was right around the corner from the shelter. So, and that, you know, I only played one time there, and it was with who was the DJ? He used to play at Gotham's West, and I'm forgetting his name. But anyway, to get back to the club, that was a really great club too, because it had a garage feel. You know, the sound was awesome. It was dark, the dance floor, and they had real lighting, and that was probably one of the best sound systems I played in. You know, Sound Factory Bar was nice, but this was pretty. They had birthers and quads, and you know, and so that was a great experience for me. And it was a popular club for quite some time. It became vinyl, and Danny Tenagula was playing there quite often.
Tell us a story about DJing at the tunnel and tell people what the tunnel was.
Oh, well, the tunnel was actually a tunnel, and that was converted to a club. And once again, it was through Michael Alec. You know, I wasn't playing in the main dance floor. I was playing at, it was like this other room, and what was fun about that was it was like I said, it was always like a Halloween costume event. You know, everyone was always dressed in these elaborate, you know, costumes, basically. You know, they had people dancing in cages. And so, yeah, it made it a lot of fun. And again, that was another party that it didn't matter what you was playing, just as long as it was something with a nice tempo, people were dancing all night, regardless what you played. So I owe a lot to the audience for dancing for, you know, to anything I played. So they kind of backed me up. Because every once in a while you run out of vinyl. It was playing vinyl at the time. You come with, you know, 6 crates and you play for, you know, 9 hours and you're like out of records.
Tell us a
So
story about DJing at Sound Factory Bar.
yeah, actually I played with Carlos Sanchez. He's the one that got me the gig. And that was fun. We played at again, that was 2 floors. And we played in a smaller room downstairs. And yeah, that was fun. And that was more of the underground, you know, Paradise Garage people, Loft. And Louis Vega was paying upstairs. And that place drew a lot of people, huge crowds. And yeah, it was fun. You know, I wish those clubs were around now, but now it's either a lounge or a super club, you know, like Knockdown Center or, you know, Avant Garde. Yeah, I miss those places.
What happened to New York?
No, Mayor Giuliani. Yeah, he really changed things, you know. Yeah, his you know, his attempt at cleaning the city also wiped out the club scene. And it's never been the same since he took over. And that's really, in my opinion, that was the factor. That was a major factor there. He cleaned up. You know, I mean, look, rightfully so. There were some clubs that, you know, they were just, it was getting a little out of control. And, you know, quality of life in New York City was kind of at its lowest point. So, you know, something had to be done, but I think they went a little too extreme. And it changed the dynamic for sure. And it's really costly now for club owners to open up a space. You know, so yeah. Thanks, Giuliani.
Let's talk about DJing. Describe the feeling when you have the crowd in the palm of your hands.
There's no feeling like it. You know, and I always, you know, when you have those moments, I really don't give myself all the credit because it really isn't me. It's just if you have a crowd that is, you know, enjoying themselves and loving the company they're with, and they're there really just to hear music and dance. You see, so you know, if you have that, then you're always gonna have them in the palm of your hand. You know, so you know, a lot of it's timing too. You know, you get the right people in the right space, you know, and they're all there for the same reason, you'll have a great response. You know, because nowadays too, it's just like everyone's taking pictures and recording, and a lot of times they're just standing around, you know, photographing each other. So, you know, when you get that, sometimes it sucks the air out of you, you know, when you're playing, because then you're like, you feel like you're playing for people that are not really there for the music. They just want to be seen. And that could be a Debbie Downer.
Tell us about sound system culture in New York City.
What's that?
Tell us about sound system culture in New York City. Because I would consider you a sound connoisseur, so love
Yeah,
to get
yeah.
your perspective.
There's not many of us anymore because now a lot of these parties and clubs, they'll just set up these like mobile DJ setup things where you just have two bass bottoms and tops on a pole, very portable. And look, I'm not knocking it. I get it. They just want a quick sound system, and sound is not that important to them. They just think loud music is all you need, you know. But that's where they're misled because I've been to places where you walk in and you just want to turn around because your ears are bleeding from the sound being too loud or screaming, too much highs, no bass, nothing equalized. But and that's the thing, once I went to that's what the garage also did to me, is it made me a sound snob. So, I mean, there's only a few people that really appreciate sound. Sean Sting, you know, he doesn't play anywhere if the sound is not right. That's why he brings his own sound systems. I mean, he is, I follow in his footsteps. That's why with my parties, I bring my own sound system because I need it to be right, at least for not only for myself, but for the people who are dancing, And Danny Tenegula also, he's a sound guy, and he travels with his sound system as well. So there's a couple of guys left that are really still, pretty much focused on sound before anything. Yeah, and yeah, that's the only thing a lot of these places are missing is a good sound system. They're into it for a quick buck, which I understand also, but that's not the path I go on.
Back to music and DJing. What's your process for discovering new music? Where do you discover it? Are you down with digital? Are you strictly vinyl? Talk to me about
Oh,
your.
no. Yeah. No, I definitely I'm a vinyl guy by heart, but I play digital now. I mean, it's easier. They've enhanced digital sound now where it sounds just as good as vinyl. And how I get my music usually is my own searching. I search through, if it's not Traxsource, it's Juno, and then, the DJs that I know, we share music that we find. Now it's just, there's a lot of people producing stuff, but not stuff that's really uh, worth playing. Got a lot of music out now where it's just drum and bass. You know, not many. There's not a lot of good music out there anymore. I mean, the people who still really focus on good music is Louis Vega. When he produces stuff, he makes sure it's musicians, real artists, vocals. Uh, People like Louis, and then you have Lou Gorbea, who also really produces a lot of stuff, and he makes sure that he uses, real musicians, real vocalists. And, I'm sorry, I'm losing where I'm going with this, but yeah. So where I get my music is just doing my own searching, and sometimes getting stuff from my buddies.
To me about house music. What does house music mean to you?
Oh, well, it's a whole culture, really. And what it means to me, I mean, it means a lot. I mean, uh, musically, it's up there with, jazz to me. And it's very important. I mean, especially for the nightlife with the club scene, I mean, I hope it sticks around. Right now it's doing pretty good. It's been around as long as I've been enjoying it, you know, and I just hope it continues. For a minute I thought we were losing it a little bit because these clubs are just playing techno and really um, music that really didn't have any music in it. I don't know if that makes sense. And and those are the clubs that those are the people. I mean, they generate millions and millions of dollars, but it's soulless, you know. So at one time, I thought we were starting to lose a lot of it because, especially in the '90s, and techno was really strong, and But luckily, the veterans that we have around, Louis Vega, Joe Clausel, and all these guys, they're a big reason why it's still around. Their influence is major. And yeah, I don't know where else is, because these guys are keeping it alive, but there's not many people following their footsteps. So, I know it'll be around as long as I'm alive. I know that, but hopefully my grandkids will be able to enjoy real house music.
That's my next question is, what advice do you have for the next generation?
To be a little more versatile, and really appreciate all genres. There's too many people that are very one-dimensional. You know, as much as I love house music and it's it's in my soul, I still listen to classical music. I listen to opera. I listen to jazz, a lot of jazz. And the new generation, they don't really appreciate, they don't know the genesis of music. You tell them, hey, have you heard of Miles Davis? Who's that? Ella Fitzgerald. They're clueless. John Coltrane, Gregory Porter. Nobody, they don't follow these people. So what I suggest and recommend to the younger generation is really spread your wings and listen to all genres. Don't get stuck in one genre. We all have our favorite genres, but be open to everything else because you'll learn a lot and you'll love a lot more.
And my final question is, what's next? When's the next BE festival? How can
Yes.
people come support? Tell us all about it.
Well, our 13th annual event is August 17th on a Sunday from 2 to 8 p.m. And this year will be my first time announcing who our guest DJ will be. It obviously Lou Gorbea, is going to be there as always. And then we have Doug Gomez. He's flying in from Costa Rica. And if you don't know who Doug Gomez is, just look him up. I mean, this man is one of the top producers, remixers, and DJs in the industry right now. And I'm really looking forward to having him come play with us. He's excited about it. And yeah, it should be really nice. So it's August 17th, 2 p.m. Fort Greene Park, Brooklyn, New York.
Awesome.
And an amazing sound system. Rumble Sounds, which is what I have with my partner, Ace House Nation. We collaborated 14 years ago. And because he's also a sound fanatic, and we both thought that it would be a great idea to put something together as a team, so that when we had our own events, we would have a sound system that would be compatible to Sting International, Paradise Garage, and we did it. We have it. Sounds amazing, and we're proud of it. And that is a sound that you will hear at Fort Greene Park, August 17th.
Perfect. And then if people want to get a hold of you, or if they want to book you, should they go to your Instagram?
Yeah, they can go to my Instagram, was Jonny De La Rivera, or Brooklyn Elements, or they can do the same thing on Facebook. You know, look me up, Jonny De La Rivera or Brooklyn Elements, and you can email me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was fantastic. I appreciate it.
Thank you, brother.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate
All
it.
right, you well. Thank
All right,
you.
all right,
Bye.
bye-bye.